Hello, all you Power BIers. This is Seth from PowerBI.Tips, and today's tip topic is publish to web. Today I want to cover two main areas of publish to web. One is when should I use it, and the second, how do I use it? So what is publish to web? Publish to web is a feature that we'll find in the PowerBI.Service. When we're in a report, you'll see that I have a report open that shows my recent tweet activity, and if I highlight File and click on that, I'll see I have an option for Publish to Web. Now, before we dive into how to generate this URL, like what is Publish to Web? Essentially, what we're doing is we're generating a URL that we can embed in an external facing application, like a blog or some media site. The proper use cases for Publish to Web, though, all revolve around the use of public information. The right use case for this is that public data that it doesn't really matter who can see it, ingest, or analyze. The wrong use case is private information or company data. The reason I make this distinction is time and time again, whether I'm on the Power BI community forums or speaking in presentations, there's usually always one question or someone who outlines how they're using Publish to Web, and it's a really easy way for them to share information with all their colleagues or to share externally with other users, and there's no need for them to have a licensing, etc. This is obviously not the way things were intended. And if you don't believe me, let's quickly jump over to the documentation page for Publish to Web. And I've been using Microsoft products for a really long time, and I don't ever recall giant red boxes at the beginning of a particular article that really outline when you should or shouldn't be using Publish to Web. Now, prior to this certain functionality that we'll look at in a second, I can argue that, okay, maybe not everybody goes out to these articles, but let's jump back into the service real quick and generate a publish to web link for this report. So when I click on publish to web, I'm now introduced with a first dialog box that essentially says, what you're about to do is share this content publicly, and you really shouldn't be doing that in sharing internally through your email or your internal network or your internet site. Publish to web is a live version of your report, and it should reflect the changes that are happening within it. Like, I'm okay with that, so let's create that code. But now I have a second prompt, and this one gets a little bit more specific. So now you have to get through two prompts that are basically warning you that what you're going to do is expose your company information. The first paragraph in here basically says, once published, anyone on the internet will be able to access the report, and Microsoft may display that report in a public website or on a public gallery. To further state, do not publish confidential or proprietary information or an individual's personal data. If in doubt, check your organization's policies before publishing. I think what Power BI is doing here is making it abundantly clear when we should and shouldn't be using publish to web. And there really shouldn't be any doubt. So now that we're all on the same page and we're using public information and we're not using company or private information, we're going to go ahead and publish that link. Success, I automatically get a link generated, and what I can do is go validate that in a browser and automatically see that my report is working as expected. So a great use case to this is out on PowerBI.Tips. Mike has created a report showing the top tutorials, and we see that this is embedded in this particular blog, and it has all of the interactive ability that I would expect when working with a Power BI report. So this is a proper use case of publish to web, and this is where you should be using it. So let's jump back to the Power BI service quick. Is there a way to see, have I generated publish to web links before? And what about others? So is there a way for me to see that? Yeah, there is. So you can go over to settings, and by clicking on that, all the way at the bottom, I'll see Manage Embed Codes. And regardless of your permission level, everybody will be able to see all of the links that they've created in Publish to Web, and they can go get the code, which brings up the dialog that I had originally, or I can delete it, which automatically breaks the link that I may have had prior to this. If I'm a Power BI administrator, I have a little bit more visibility by clicking on the admin portal, and I can see embed codes for everybody within the organization. So I can see the one that I just created and all of the ones that Mike has. I'll be nice and I won't delete anything. So now that we have visibility into the tenant and we can see all the different published webs, if anything comes up here that I want to reach out to, I can see who the user is and maybe reach out and make sure that there's no crazy information that shouldn't be shared externally. So the one last point I want to make is we can control within our organization who can use publish to web and who can't. And where we do that is in tenant settings. So by clicking on tenant settings and then publish to web, we'll see that there's a dialog that I have this enabled, and I'm currently applying this to the entire organization. But right underneath that is specify security groups. And if I click on that, there's an option here by which I can have a security group created for a specific set of users to be able to use or not use publish to web. So now I have granular control that allows, say, the marketing department to still be able to use publish to web. And for the remainder of the users in my organization, they wouldn't be able to see that option when they clicked on file. So all in all, I hope this was useful from the standpoint of defining when you really should use publish to web, when you shouldn't, and how you can have certain controls over it when you're implementing the solution. I hope this was helpful, and we'll see you next time on PowerBI.Tips.